Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Aging in Place Directory podcast, episode number 4. I'm so very happy to have you here. Please don't forget to subscribe, listen to our channel, and that way we can get this podcast seen and heard by more people who are looking to actually grow older in their home, be as independent as for as long as possible and as safely as possible. And if you're not listening to this podcast on a podcast app, you can certainly listen to it on YouTube. I'll have a link to our YouTube channel in the show notes or the description below. I think in podcasts they call it show notes, but on YouTube they call it descriptions. Either way, it's the text associated with the recording. So today I wanted to talk about the issue of decluttering, because that really is the very, very first step in the process of aging in place. A lot of people don't think of decluttering as an issue, but it certainly is, only because a lot of the reason that injuries occur is because you've tripped over something, or bumped your head against something, or tried to avoid bumping into something, and you ended up falling, breaking a wrist, a shoulder, a hip, anything like that. Any type of movement, type of action, be it walking, be it on stairs, be it on a treadmill, or any type of moving. I just heard from a friend of mine that her neighbor got home from a trip, and here in the Atlanta airport they have a lot of these moving sidewalks, to help get you from one place to the other without having to walk as much, because it's a huge airport, busiest airport in the world. And she tripped getting out, stepping off of that moving sidewalk, and she fractured her femur. So that, of course, will take a long time. She's in her early 80s, so it's going to take quite a while for that leg to recover. And, truth be told, she may not recover at 100%. So any type of movement that you're doing as you get older only makes the chances of getting hurt a little more possible. So of course you want to try to avoid that. So decluttering is definitely one way to do that. And what that means is basically reducing the amount of furniture that you have in a room. Oftentimes, as an occupational therapist, I would walk into people's homes to assess if they could return home. And what I found was that I had to scoot sideways between the coffee table and the sofa, or there wasn't hardly any room between the chairs in the dining room and the wall, anything like that. On top of that, they often would have a rug underneath any of these things, so you would have to step over onto the rug, because if you were shuffling your feet, which happens often as we get older, your toe or the heel of your shoe would get caught on the edge of that rug, and you would flip it, trip, and fall onto the excess furniture or the wrong furniture that you have in the house. If you have a glass coffee table or anything glass, that could easily be something that you could fall onto and break. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about decluttering. So I know a lot of people will say, well, wait a minute, it's going to cost me money to get rid of my furniture. And my furniture is very good furniture, because of course, years ago, they used to make wonderful, high-quality furniture. Nowadays, the furniture is less expensive, it's true, but it also is not, I would say, of high quality. So how do you combat that? How do you trade a really good piece of quality furniture for something that's not so high quality? Well, I'll tell you what I always told my patients was that the quality of your health and your life is worth much more than that piece of furniture. So if you want to be independent for as long as possible in your own home, that's the trade-off. You want to go for something that's smaller, gives you more space in whatever living space you're in, and it's safer. It's safer. On top of that, you also want to reduce the amount of things that you have in the house. Now, I know a lot of people like to collect certain statuettes or things like that, knickknacks, tchotchkes, whatever you want to call them. And that's fine. The issue with that is cleaning, dusting, having to access those things to dust. Sometimes they're on high shelves. So unless you don't mind living with the dust, although that's not necessarily healthy you're not healthy, especially if you live in the Southwest of America where there's a lot of dust because of the desert environment. You really don't want that in your home as much. But either way, it requires some cleaning to try to get to those things. So you want to try to reduce the amount of work that you have to do to maintain your house, because that is an issue of decluttering. A lot of people, when they think of the word decluttering, they think of hoarding. But it isn't necessarily hoarding. It's just having a lot of things in your house. I personally have a lot of books. That's my hoard is books. But I try very hard to keep that organized and in a certain area, one room, and I may have a few books here and there around the house, but not that much, nothing that is unmanageable or nothing that I can't clean and take care of quickly. If I ever got to the point where I couldn't do that, then comes time when I have to think about how am I either going to store these? Do I put them behind glass cabinets, or do I just get rid of some of them? Which, I think it would be a good idea to purge the house once a year of things that you haven't used or taken care of or needed in that past year. My husband passed away 9 years ago, and we lived in a very large house. There were 11 clothing closets in that house, and he had 10 of them. He loved clothes. And so after he passed away, it was a huge job to get rid of not only all those clothes, but the plethora of tools that he had, and shoes in every drawer of every room, shelf. There were so many things to clean out, because I knew eventually I would have to move into something smaller, and I couldn't possibly take all these things. There were 5 bedrooms in that house, and I moved into a home with 2. So it's impossible to it wouldn't fit. It certainly wouldn't fit, and it didn't make sense. So I began the act of decluttering. It took me a year, but what I did is I made a list, and I broke down each room of the house, and I broke each room down into sections. So if it was Wednesday, January 3rd, then I knew that I had to empty out that top left drawer in the dresser in guest room number 1. If it was Thursday, February 5th, then I knew that I was going to clean out the bottom shelf of the pantry in the kitchen. We had 2 pantries actually, so one of them. Now, what that did for me was that it broke it down into smaller pieces so that I wouldn't be so overwhelmed. Plus the fact that it was very emotional doing all of that. But even if it's not so emotional, you want to break it down so that it's in smaller pieces, so that it's not so overwhelming, and you're not having to spend an hour or days or an entire day just doing the decluttering and cleaning out. If you can do it in smaller pieces, it's much easier. And what I did was anything that I wasn't going to keep, I automatically put that into a box or a bag in my car. And then once that car was filled with boxes and bags, then that was a trip to Goodwill or whatever thrift store. There were a lot of times I took it to pet shops. They had thrift stores there. Any blankets or pillows I definitely took to pet shops, because they could always use those kinds of things. Sheets, things like that. So it was, like I said, it took a year, but it was definitely worth it. And I was able to move smoothly and cleanly into my new home, which I absolutely love. It's been 9 years, so it's taken me a while to get used to it, but I'm definitely used to it. And it just made the entire transition much easier. I know that decluttering is emotional because a lot of things hold emotion for you, but you don't need 20 items of a Hummel set. You know, you can keep one, keep your favorite, take photos of the rest, and share the rest with your kids, your family, your friends, whomever. I did that as well. Anyone who wanted anything, they were more than I was more than happy for them to take it. But I have an article that I'm going to link to here in the show notes with more details about decluttering and cleaning out your house, so that whether you're aging in place, or whether you're considering possibly downsizing to a smaller home or apartment or condo, whatever, it's a great cleansing act to clean up and to get your space more functional, safer for sure, and so that you can live as independently as possible for as long as possible. And that's really the whole point of aging in place. Not just to stay in your home as is, but to stay in your home as long as possible and as independent as possible. So that's my goal here with this podcast and YouTube channel, is to give you tips and ideas on how you can do that. We do have some people lined up for interviews, which I'm excited to do. I think we're starting some of them next week. So you don't have to just always listen to me, but I'm more than happy to share everything I know. I've worked as an OT for many years in the field of geriatrics, and I'm a certified aging in place specialist. So I have a few tidbits of knowledge about how to better keep your home as safe as possible so that you can stay there as long as possible. All right. I want to thank you so much. Don't forget to subscribe, whether you're on YouTube or on a podcast. Follow us, and we've got plenty more podcasts to come. I anticipate this going on for many years. All right, everybody, take care, and we'll see you next time.